A typical season of NASCAR would see things begin at places like Daytona, Atlanta, and Las Vegas. But we haven't seen a typical season of NASCAR in a bit. So while we did indeed make a visit to Atlanta last week, this week changes things up by throwing dirt on the surface of Bristol and letting the drivers loose. Let's see who's adaptable as we get ready to watch round 2 of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Christian Challoner. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Bristol's dirt layout has some significant differences to its usual makeup. Let's head to our track guide to learn what they are.
Welcome to Bristol Motor Speedway, and no, your eyes do not deceive you, because for only the second time since its construction, dirt will now grace the high banks of the last great Coliseum. Now a mainstay on the NASCAR schedule, this steeply banked half-mile was originally constructed in 1960 and quickly gained a reputation as a hotspot for both close battles and on-track conflict. Boasting a seating capacity of 162,000, Bristol is the third largest sporting venue in America and has played host to a multitude of non-racing events over the years, including both professional and collegiate football. The track first held dirt racing back in 2000, with the World of Outlaws and National Late Model Series taking to the track twice before the racing surface was permanently relegated back to concrete. But that changed in 2020 when, along with a raft of other schedule changes, NASCAR announced that America's premier stock car series would return to its roots and set the Generation 6 race car loose on the dirt of Bristol Motor Speedway. Nearly 23,000 cubic yards of dirt, red clay, and sawdust are needed to transform the circuit into the high-speed dirt track you see today. The process reduces the banking to roughly 19 degrees in the corners, but rest assured, those 19 degrees are more than enough to provide the type of action, conflict, and excitement we've come to expect from the world's fastest half-mile.
Well, Christian, we've been to Bristol with the Cup cars plenty of times, but now with dirt in the mix, how do you expect it's going to race today?
It's definitely going to be a lot different from what we've normally come to expect from Bristol. I think it's kind of going to be on the same level in terms of action, but obviously dirt layout, 18 degrees of banking in the turns, and it is still a half-mile racetrack, and you can kind of use the apron a little bit, so imagine we're going to see some moves made down there, I would say.
Well, that'll be interesting if we can see anybody brave enough to really duck that low. But before we get to the action on the track, we want to remind you that today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net. The PRL NASCAR Cup Series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. So with one round under our belt, it's not going to be too complicated, although there are bonus points to consider in this. As we look at the drivers' standings, Connor Hall with his victory is leading James O'Brien, with Mike Knight 1 point back, even though Mike beat James to the line last week. Richard Regan Jr. and Matthew Long actually tied for the 4th position. And then Josh Daniels rounds out the top 5. We expect that should probably jump around a lot after today. Christian, you also have the Teams Championship. How are those looking?
Yeah, no surprises. It's still pretty close over there after only one round, obviously, but a win and another top 10 for Connor Hall eSports puts them in the lead with 90 points right now. Private label Team Hype, only 3 points behind, obviously, after 1 week. What about Racing Orange and Black? 24 points back in third, with Wedgehammer Racing 31 back in fourth, and James Bird Racing slightly behind them by 4 points, 35 back.
Of course, this is going to be a little bit different with it being dirt. So as you can see, round 2 out of 10. It is a 110 lap feature, but they will have 20 lap heats. We'll go into more detail on how that will work in the format a little bit later. They have no spare car, however, so there's no backup. If they get damaged, they've got to deal with what they've got. It is open setup, and on dirt, that could certainly mean a lot out here. 24 incident limit, so drivers can't beat and bang too much, especially with the number of laps that they will have in that feature race, or they will be DQ'd. Right now, they're in the midst of warm-up, as you can see that the track is very slicked up. Now, just in case we actually have viewers that aren't experienced with witnessing what dirt racing is like, Christian, talk about the rubber and how that differs from dirt to what we're used to on pavement.
Yeah, so pretty much on a pavement track, the track does change a little bit as the run goes on, and obviously you'll see the groove everybody's running in will kind of darken up and whatnot, and it can get a little bit slicker, or it can actually grip up depending on pretty much the track, the car, or the combination of the two, you know. But in terms of dirt, it's pretty much always best when you kind of go from fresh, which is the lighter color that you see, and then as it starts to darken up, like right now through 3 and 4, you can see that it's basically the entire racetrack except for the apron and the wall are essentially completely black. There is no grip right now. It's probably the worst you're actually going to see the track all night, but it does mean that it's pretty critical to sort of stay in the fresher areas of the track. If you spot that some other people aren't running in them, and you've got a couple of guys to pass, and there's maybe a line, say, up on the wall that you want to risk, then that's definitely a play that you can make. So definitely look out for guys moving out towards those kind of lighter areas of the track.
So the dynamic track here on iRacing will be even more dynamic, as it will change quite quickly throughout each heat. Now, it will be reset between the sessions. They'll send out the virtual water trucks to get them back into a better condition. It won't be 100% fresh. It'll just be set to about halfway between completely used and completely fresh. Right now at the top, Trent Dinkle, interestingly, leads the times with Waldo Walden down in second place, not far back, too. Those two seem to have this one together, as you see the 84 and his wonderful, appropriate paint scheme once again out there this season. Connor Hall, our winner from last round, actually down in 5th, so that'll be something to watch out for. Where is Bradley Hawley, though, right now? Oh, wow, he's down in 20th, so Hawley's got some work to do, unless this just simply isn't representative of things for him.
Yeah, I would say that this is probably, it's just not representative at this point. The practice session's been running for 2 hours and 20 minutes, so anybody who got out there right near the beginning, I mean, right now they're running kind of high 19s, some drivers in the low to mid 20s, so nobody is even close to troubling the 17.7 that Trent Dinkle ran, which I suspect was probably right at the beginning of the session, but it means that it's quite difficult to actually practice. This is probably not dissimilar to what it would be like at the very, very end of the feature, but it's not really much help for you in it's certainly no help at all for you to practice qualifying right now, and maybe even going into the heats, it's probably still not that helpful.
I'll be curious to see how this will differ from the trucks as well, because we did get to see the truck race here on the dirt earlier in the week on Wednesday, and that gave us quite a bit of excitement, if not a shortened race. But it did seem to me, and I don't know if this is what we've been experiencing with the Cup cars as well, Christian, but we saw a lot of incidents coming off the corners where cars seemed to drift into one another.
Yeah, especially guys if they're trying to run the bottom of the racetrack, and if you come off kind of close to the pit cones, so to speak, you can kind of get it where it starts to go back and forth on you, and it's a little bit difficult to hold on to, and it'll wash up the racetrack. Obviously, if you've got somebody who's trying to rip the top and you kind of wash up in front of them, it's going to be a bad time for everybody involved. But just one of the other aspects of racing on dirt, you know, like we see the different lines on pavement have different exit speeds and whatnot, but dirt kind of exaggerates that even further. So
dealing with extremes in a certain way here this evening. Last few seconds in our warm-up tick down. We'll only get 3 minutes for our qualifying, and they will get 2 laps each to try and set their best time. So it'll be important to keep it clean. If they touch the outside wall at all, anywhere on the track, that lap is discounted. So imperative that they get a clean lap in. Otherwise, they will be put in a heat that isn't necessarily where they might want to be, and that could hurt their starting position for the feature itself. As see a few of them now heading out onto the track, including Josh Daniels, who I think is our first in that 77.
Yeah, you see the track is a completely different color to what it was just then in the practice session, so a lot lighter, a lot more grip out there. But you can see that it's still kind of divided into two lanes. There's the top and then there's the bottom, so it'll be interesting to see what line guys pick here. Obviously the top is very, very fast, but really high risk. See, Joshua Daniels has already invalidated his first lap there for sure, I think.
Yeah, he took a big clatter into the wall through 1 and 2. We'll get one more shot at it. This time, it looks like he kept it off, although I got some ghost sparks off the wall. Not sure if that meant that he touched it on his or if just my connection wasn't reading it right. And indeed, the 77 won't have one count, but Connor Hall will, as he goes to the pole provisionally, waiting on Trent Dinkle to see if he can back up that practice time. He also had a bit of contact with the wall. I see Michael Witt in second. Richard Regan Jr. faring well. He was in third. Now he's down in fourth. Josh Daniels up into second after his 2 laps. So his second one was clean, but he's still a half second off of Connor Hall.
Yeah, and it's pretty difficult to hit a lap exactly perfectly, and especially when you've only kind of got 2 laps to do it in. It takes a little bit, I find, to kind of get into the groove of this. So having the track state completely switched to what you just had in practice and then being told, hey, go out and hit 2 great laps, is see Brandon Walter using the apron a little bit there.
Yeah, just a little bit. It is Robert Besaw Jr. Comes through, and it looks like he was in 13th with that second lap. Pat Harvey, in the meantime, has not put one on the board because that lap was invalidated as well. We're looking at Chad Brown now, who sits in 15th, his second time through. Going to be a 19.7, 2/10 quicker, and that will actually not get him a position, and he continues to be cycled down by those now going faster.
Yeah, and obviously the field spread, I think, is probably going to be the biggest that we're going to see all season, I think, here. Just because of how different a deal this is, you know? Like, we talk about when the series goes to road courses and whatnot, and it kind of playing into certain drivers' hands. I don't think this plays into anybody in the series' hands, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we are actually going to be missing a few this evening if you're noticing a slightly smaller field, simply because they do have a license limit, and the dirt license on ovals on iRacing is different from their paved license. And Bradley Hawley on his 2 laps has his first as his best, and he's still only down in 17th.
Yeah, I am surprised that he hasn't picked up more than he has. Obviously, I thought his practice time wasn't representative, but he's only picked up 2/10 relative to that, so definitely disappointed for him.
Well, that is going to end our qualifying and take us into our first heat. Now, there is no B main or consolation race. Everybody is making it to the feature, and this will determine their starting order depending on where they finish in this race. Connor Hall will start it on the pole with Trent Dinkle starting in second. Elliott White will be P3 and Richard Regan Jr. in fourth. We have Brandon Walter, who we saw take a wild ride down across the apron, starting from fifth, with Abner Acosta not necessarily showing as well here in the Cup cars like he did over in the trucks. He'll start from sixth. Waldo Walden, seventh, with Robert Besaw Jr. eighth. Bradley Hawley all the way down to ninth, and Mike Knight in 10th.
And then back 2 rows, we got Scotty Johnson in 11th, Doug Evans in 12th, and Adam Zemke starting right at the back of this one in 13th, with Terry Marinaro alongside him in 14th.
All right, we'll get 2 pace laps here around the dirt track at Bristol, and then we'll release them for 20 laps. They've got a little bit of time to try and get themselves into the position they want to be, but not a lot. How hard do you think you push to try and get your qualifying order a little bit better here, Christian? Is it important for them to really try and hustle their way up, or is it better to try and just survive and look to at least finish?
Well, I think you absolutely have to go for it, because with there being the 2 heats and 14 going through from both, you're pretty much fighting for the inside line here. So every position gained is more significant than it might appear, because it's essentially a row for the main, and it's it's pretty hard to actually pass on dirt in a way that's clean. You know, you can obviously give someone the door and get by, but that's not going to win you any favors. So clean passes is pretty difficult to do. Obviously 20-lap race, so it's not a lot of time to get that done. And I would say you're going to see a lot of guys who pretty much have nothing to lose. I fully expect somebody like Adam Zamke to try and run the fence here and just try and get some positions in this heat.
All right, as we take off behind the pace truck, don't forget that you too can follow along. If we're not showing your favorite driver on the screen, check out gsrc.tv, and we will have all the live data from each and every car in the timing and scoring there. So it's the exact same timing and scoring we've got here in the booth, and should be a fun watch, especially once we get all the cars out there running at the same time, because there's certainly going to be quite a bit of craziness dealing with a half mile of dirt. As Connor Hall will be starting this one from the pole after his opening victory at Atlanta, trying to switch disciplines quite literally and repeat that victory. What can Dinkle do, as the 501 was quite quick in the warm-up session here this evening, as he could be a serious threat since he seems to have those dirt chops here around Bristol. Should see the pace truck in very shortly. Also, don't forget about those behind them, Elliott White and Richard Regan Jr. and the trucks. We certainly saw the second place vehicle manage to get a good jump most of the time. There goes the pace truck, and the green flag is out. Connor Hall is on it. Looks like Trent Dinkle gets a good start over the second row. He decides to go high as the battle for second, way too high. The 501's in the wall twice.
Yeah, and that's the big risk there with running the top line. It's very, very fast, but it's very hard to run it without getting in the fence. And obviously Trent Dinkle immediately into it, not even through turn one.
Well, he keeps it together. It apparently didn't hurt him too hard. He's still in second. Oh, big checkup for Richard Regan Jr., and that causes a chain reaction. Besaw Jr. gets to him, and it's the 5 of Acosta who gets it the worst.
Yeah, just about everybody in the mid-pack there ran into the fence and then started to bounce down the racetrack. And unfortunately for Acosta, he was kind of the one who was trying to run the bottom and got sent down to the apron and lost a lot of track position.
Ooh, Regan not looking steady across the bottom himself. Now the 27 of Elliott White gets up into third. And now up at the top of him, Robert Besaw Jr. in the number 3. He's going to make it 3 wide. They are going to come out the other side of that one, but that was a sketchy move.
Yeah, Besaw Jr. giving the door to the 27 there into the next turn, and he's not going to be happy about that. But this is not easy, and this is why we're seeing so many incidents happen right now. Obviously, a lot of cars out there kind of trying to feel it out, figure out where they need to run. It's a short heat. You gotta go for it, you know.
A reminder, they do have an incident limit out here, so they can't bang these things around too much. I wonder if we're going to see some drivers disappear before all is said and done. As the 46 once again tries to go low, fighting with Robert Besaw Jr. for that third position. Besaw is going to take it right back. This is all happening behind Hall and Dinkle, who are a little bit up the order, about 4 seconds up the ways currently.
Yeah, Hall with about a 2-second advantage over Dinkle, but obviously the pair of those guys have just completely left the rest of the field behind.
This is looking awful rough here for some of these drivers, and Elliott White down into the barrels that cover off the entry to the pit lane. So immediate DNF for the 27. Let's take a look at this.
Yeah, this looked pretty rough. He kind of just got out of the corner pretty bad. You see him there right down at the apron and just completely centered the pit barrels right there.
Oh, man. He absolutely had good reason to take a tow on that one, so he's not going to be able to finish this short 20-lap heat race. Connor Hall in that 22. Woo! He's throwing sparks out as he just brushes the outside.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that he's sort of risking this as much as he is. He could just run the bottom and probably still win the race. He's got a pretty handy advantage right now. But elected to practice running the top, I guess. Not much to lose.
He's already coming upon some traffic. That's Zemke in 57 who announced he's going to duck low and let our leaders by. Another light little touch from the 22 up onto the top side. As really the close fight that we saw for third has grown apart. Instead, it looks like Abner Acosta has now got the best battle on track. That's with Waldo Walden in the 84.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that we've still got so many guys getting into the fence, actually. It's we're halfway through this heat now. Everybody kind of should have figured it out at this point.
It is admittedly quite a different track from what we saw in much of the warm-up, but I don't think they've got memories that short, as we're past halfway, and Waldo still ahead of Abner Acosta. They're coming upon Bradley Hawley, actually catching Bradley Hawley, this seems. Hawley, another one, just smacking the outside. Same thing with Acosta, who we ride on board with. 184 immediately overtaken by Waldo Walden.
Yeah, he lost a lot of momentum right there and allowed Walden to get by him, and Acosta's now trying to make the bottom work to get underneath him, but it looks like, unfortunately for him, Hawley's got it gathered up right as he got to his door.
Oh, another big hit into the concrete. Have we finally found the Achilles heel of Bradley Hawley? As he comes back, though, and he manages to get ahead of Walden. Oh, Walden has to check up, trying to stay out of him as they go 3 wide. Down at the bottom, Abner Acosta sneaking into 6th.
Yeah, and see, this is the thing I was talking about before we went green, in the sense of he's just gained 2 rows for the feature there, so it's a pretty significant advantage to get some passes done and to stay out of trouble in these heats.
A little bit cleaner for the 5 than there was for the 184 that time through, and in fact, coming off the corner, Hawley just about glued to the wall, having a hard time getting off of there. They're almost being lapped by our leader, and this is for 7th and 8th position.
Yeah, already 9th on back is already a lap down at minimum, so Hall is just, I wouldn't say he's making it look easy because he's having his own adventures with the wall, but he's definitely managing it better than everybody else's right now.
His hits don't seem to be as rough. They look a little bit more controlled as we ride on board with our leader. He's going to duck down low to get underneath Walden, as well as trying to see if he can go by Bradley Hawley. Runs out of turn, down to 3 to go. We're going to be 2 to go at the line.
Yeah, the reason everybody's kind of struggling with this is just because the line up there is so narrow and it's such a fine target to hit. If you get it a little bit wrong, like if you're too low, you're in the slick and there's just no speed there, you see Hall ended up coming right in front of Hawley and really checks him up quite bad right there, actually. But then the other thing is the wall is obviously pretty close to where the right side of the car is, so sounds obvious, but it's definitely not easy.
Whoa, that was a spin. Was that Acosta? Yeah, that was Acosta down low as we take the white flag. There's no cautions in the heat races. And as they come around one last time, Connor Hall claims the victory in heat number 1. Trent Dinkel all the way to 4 seconds behind in only 20 laps, but he will finish in 2nd place. And Besaw getting himself a nice podium.
Yeah, big gain from Besaw there. Started back in 8th and finished 3rd, so he's going to be starting on row 3 on the inside. So actually, pretty good starting spot for him in the main. Regan
in 4th. Looks like Walter P5, Bradley Hawley 6th. Walden 7th, Johnson in 8th, 9th, Zemke finishes 10th, Acosta 11th, Evans 12th, Elliott White 13th, and our last driver, Marinero, I don't think began the race. He did not start. That brings us to heat number 2. Only 2 heats, so usually we schedule 3 for these dirt races, but they did not get enough drivers in. Michael Witt, though, will start on the top spot, with Josh Daniels starting in 2nd. It'll be Charles Sumner in P3, with Patrick Cowgill in 4th. Inside of row 3, it's James O'Brien, with Colton Lane outside of him. Taylor Stout starts 7th, as Alex Pellerin in 8th, and Pat Harvey 9th. And it's Chad Brown finishing up our first slide.
Then Matthew Long's lining up in 11th behind him, with Mark Kalin back there in 12th as well. Jose Medina in 13th, and rounding out the final starting spot for this heat is Baron Hilton in 14th.
All right, looks like we have everybody out there, so that pace truck should be off and rolling now. As it's going to be Michael Witt ahead of Josh Daniels. And the 77 getting himself up in front of Witt to try and challenge, get himself to be able to start alongside the likes of Connor? Or will he have to start a row back and sort it out from there and try and fight his way past them in the race? So that was an interesting first heat. What did you garner from that, Christian, watching our first set of drivers?
It's pretty much as expected as far as I was concerned, and the top is basically the place to be. It's just very hard to run there without getting into the fence. I was a little bit surprised that drivers who were actually really struggling with that weren't kind of going, okay, I'm just not going to run the top, and going down to trying to run either just above the apron or even with kind of cutting down onto the apron. I feel like that might have been a better choice for them, but maybe they're just going with the attitude that, hey, it's the heat, there's no points on offer, we might as well just go for it, try and learn how to run the top so that when we get to the main, we'll be able to.
Use the tools at hand, I suppose, as the pace truck now releases our field. And Michael Witt waits a while on this one. Green flag is out. He waited too long, I think, as he struggles to get the power down on the front stretch. Josh Daniel looks much quicker into the corner, but he drifts up. The two are going to come together, but the 77 still takes the top spot away.
Yeah, and in the back, Alex Pellerin got really unlucky there. He got turned around, so he's way back. He's going to have some help from some incidents to get anything out of this heat.
O'Brien still challenging on Witt in that number 9. He gets a little push from behind, and Charles Sumner as well gets his shove from Taylor Stout down below him. Looks like they'll get it sorted out, though. Oh, big contact on the 9. Unfortunately, Sumner giving that shove to O'Brien. The 9 still manages to keep it pointed the right direction, but already we're seeing some drivers take the spirit of dirt racing to heart.
Yeah, I think Patrick Cowgill in the 31 just got turned around as well, and the caution is out.
Well, I thought we didn't have cautions, but I guess that is not the case. Patrick Cowgill seems to be the one that has sprung that one out in the 31. He's going to get spun a little bit. And, yeah, it looked like maybe he was checking up, and that's Pat Harvey who turns him the rest of the way around.
Yeah, it looked like he was kind of having his own moment there, and then unfortunately was right in front of Pat Harvey, who finally sent him the full 360 around.
So I have my answer to the question. That was a manually thrown caution on that one. So this is under the live steward's discretion, it appears, here in this heat. And they didn't like the way things were looking there for a brief moment. Well, this slows... sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, definitely interesting to see you throw the caution. Obviously, we didn't have any cautions in the first heat, and well, it wasn't for cars not getting into the wall.
Yeah, I suppose maybe it partly was due to the fact that it was two cars coming together for that one, because I don't think we saw two cars really spin each other around fully. It was usually single car incidents, including the Abner Acosta, who was left on the bottom of the track. So we'll try and get some clarification, see if they could enlighten us on what it is they're looking for on that while we wait for the drivers to double up. Good news is for Pellerin, this brings him back into it, as he's still on the lead lap.
Yeah, definitely a huge game for him, because he was basically half a lap behind before that caution came out. So he now gets a re-rack. It's about half the race distance he would have liked to had to make his way forwards, but hey, at least it's some opportunity. He's not stuck languished in the back for the rest of the night.
One of our drivers that failed to qualify, Baron Hilton, seems to fancy dirt racing. He's gone from 14th to 8th, so I'm not sure what his reasoning for lack of qualifying was. I'll have to check and see. Yeah, he did attempt it, but he botched both laps, unfortunately. Must have touched the wall both times, so that's why he was put at the back of the field. With better conditions, maybe we could have seen him a little higher up. They're going to get side by side. Maybe, now that he's closer to the cars in front, the 47 will have a good shot at trying to overtake a few more for a better starting position in the future race. We come around turns 3 and 4. You can already see that track rubbering up to a large degree in just the couple of green flag laps, which returns now. And the 77 gets a great jump. James O'Brien into second ahead of Michael Witt.
and a much calmer start at the front than we had for the beginning of the heat.
A little bit of a bang into the outside. I think that was Taylor Stout that we saw. Everybody now taking it through 3 and 4. The first lap back under green. Still a good fight between Matthew Long and Charles Sumner. This is for the 4th position. Oh, but Sumner just smacked the wall in the 98. That's going to force the 66 low. Taylor Stout keeps it from becoming a wreck, but he certainly lost a little bit of time in that.
Yeah, I saw the direction his car was going, and I thought we were about to have a repeat of the pit barrel incident right there, but he managed to avoid it and actually did pretty well out of that.
Oh, more incidents going up on the high side. Everybody still pointed the right way. That was Colton Lane and Charles Sumner, who started halfway up, actually up in the top 3 or 4, I think, and suddenly the 98 is now down in 10th just in a couple laps.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I was saying with regards to running the top side of the track, and that if you can't do it without getting into the fence, it might be better to just run lower down. And that's actually what we're seeing further up in the field. James O'Brien is just running completely in the slick. So is Michael Witt. And yeah, they're probably not running as fast as Joshua Daniels, and Daniels is getting away, but they're not getting in the fence. And that's actually working out better for them than if they were trying to run the top of the racetrack.
And giving us some fantastic racing here. This is for second between O'Brien and Witt. And finally, the 26 just can't keep the pace up on the bottom. He loses to the number 9. It was Matthew Long as well, actually, who I believe we're right on board with now, watching the pair of them.
Yeah, see, he's running pretty significantly lower for the vast majority of the corner. And he's not able to make any passes, but at the same time, he's not getting in the fence, and he's able to hold on to that position. You see the 9 up ahead actually just got into the fence on the top side.
Granted, while they were brought back together by the caution, Daniels isn't pulling away like we saw the likes of Hall do. Whew, big slide off the corner from O'Brien. Absolutely wheeling this thing. He's just got to do it for 6 more laps, and he's going to finish in P2, which will certainly help him. Started from 5th on the grid here in this second heat of the evening.
Yeah, it looks like drivers in the second heat are kind of figuring it out at this point. We're seeing a lot less wall contact, or if we are seeing any, it's kind of glancing blows. They're not shooting up the racetrack and slamming into it.
The 77 in particular looks pretty cool and collected. Our leader, Josh Daniels, now brings it to 4 laps to go. And he keeps the gap at roughly a second over the chasing James O'Brien, which is certainly becoming familiar. He was the one chasing last round at Atlanta. We're on board with Daniels now, our leader. Look at how much action there is on the wheel just to get this thing around the track. My goodness.
It's definitely not easy on a slick track to get around this place, especially if you're trying to run up by the fence. And you see he kind of gets to the middle of the corner and then nose washes out. So you got to be really careful of that if you know it's going to happen, because that's how you get kind of stuck up in the fence and lose a lot of time.
Daniels now down to 2 laps to go. He's extended it to a 1.5 seconds over O'Brien, who's also dropped Witt. Our pole sitter has fallen all the way to 3rd. Not able to back up that qualifying pace. 1 to go for the 77. In comparison to last time, only 2 cars off the lead lap, both of them in the pit lane. Daniels around the final 2 corners of our second heat of the evening. And this is going to put him with the win in the second heat. O'Brien in 2nd and Michael Witt in 3rd.
Definitely much cleaner than the first heat, and it looked like guys in the second one who maybe watched the first one, figured out what was possible, what wasn't, and definitely learned from it.
4th went to Long. Pellerin up to P5. Nice recovery. Taylor Stout was 6th, Pat Harvey 7th, and Colton Lane in 8th. Then you had Patrick Cowgill in P9 with Chad Brown in 10th, Mark Kane in 11th, Jose Medina in 12th, and our DNFs for that race were Sumner and Hilton, the last 2 positions respectively. They get a 5-minute warm-up, and then we will head into our 110 lap feature. Once again, you can see that the track has been reset. This is just informational, this warm-up, for drivers to get accustomed to the track after it's been through what it has and gets reset here to that 50% level, and almost everybody looks like they want to come out on track and get more practice in.
Yeah, and it's definitely worthwhile because there's going to be a lot to be gained in the first couple of laps of the main, especially with the track kind of in this, I'm not going to call it fresh because it definitely isn't, but it's fresher than it's going to be later on. And it'll actually be interesting to see how roughed up it gets even in this five-minute warm-up.
Now, we're used to having a pretty decently wide assortment of iRatings here in PRL because they try to encourage drivers of all abilities to come in and compete. And the paved oval side, that's certainly true. We see drivers a pretty steep iRating. But here, since this is not traditionally a dirt series, since they will use their actual dirt licenses, it's actually far lower of a strength of field here this evening. I think our highest rated is 2,400, if I'm looking correctly, and that actually is Pellerin.
Yeah, so definitely going to have to keep an eye out for him, but as you say, this is very different to what most of these guys are used to, so that's probably contributing to why we're seeing a lot of the field struggle with running the top side of the racetrack, because that's something that the very best dirt guys on iRacing, they're really accustomed to that, and it takes a lot of practice to get to the point where you're genuinely comfortable running with the right rear right on the fence pretty much every lap. So it's not surprising to me that we're seeing a lot of guys getting into it, but I think as the race goes on, and I mean even in that second heat we saw it's getting less and less, which I think is good to see. There's a lot of guys out there who are kind of building experience as they go, I think.
I got curious, and apparently I guess it does give us the number of incidents that drivers have had, and I think that's from just the heat. So far, the one that is at the most risk is, ironically, Abner Acosta at 6. We've got a couple with 4, including guys like Hawley and Lane, as well as Baron Hilton. But otherwise, doesn't look like there's too many drivers that are at risk of being DQ'd very early, as the 5 finds himself both facing the wrong way and in the wall here in the warm-up.
Yeah, I'm actually watching a lot of guys out there who kind of having those sort of lazy spins happen, and it seems to be when they cross the slick in the middle of the racetrack, either when they're coming down, say trying to cut down through it on the exit, or even actually sometimes when they're cutting from the bottom up to the top on entry. And it's definitely not easy, and kind of the areas are fresh. I mean, you can even already see it now. The top is just about okay, but it's very, very thin already, and the bottom is basically gone. And this is only 4 minutes into this warm-up.
Yeah, most of the drivers, let's see, have not done more than 7 or 8 laps here currently, if that tells you anything. And yet, with everybody on the track deteriorates so ridiculously quick. You have to wonder what it's going to look like after 110 laps. If we make it to that many, of course, they will have a 45-minute limit to the feature race. So if they get too many cautions, we have to watch out for that, and it could wind up becoming a timed race instead. Just a few more seconds left, and we head off into the feature. I mean, who's your pick for this one that seems to have this pretty under control today?
It's hard to bet against Connor Hall, but I'm going to be watching the 818 Alex Pellerin. He was dealt kind of a tough hand in that heat, but he recovered from it well, and he was one of the few drivers who was able to make the bottom of the racetrack work, so I think he's probably going to be one to watch.
Well, and another thing is he'll have more laps to do it if he does run into trouble. As long as it's early enough, he can try and use that to his advantage to climb back through the field. In only 20 laps, he went from nearly dead last up to a top 5, which is still higher than where he qualified. As now the session ends and the drivers switch over. So we'll have our grid set up. Let's go through that starting order for the feature here in round 2 of the PRL NASCAR Cup. Jose Medina, excuse me, not Jose Medina, Connor Hall. It switched up on me, my timing and scoring. Connor Hall starts on the pole. Josh Daniels will be next to him. Trent Dinkle starts in third with James O'Brien in fourth. It's Robert Besaw Jr. starting P5 and Michael Witt in sixth. Richard Regan Jr. is seventh, followed by Matthew Long to his outside. You've got Brandon Walter in ninth and Alex Pellerin starting from 10th.
Bradley Holly lines up in 11th. He had a pretty tough time, I think it's fair to say, in the first heat, so it'll be interesting to see how he recovers from this, if he recovers from this. Alongside him, we've got Taylor Stout. Waldo Walden is back there in 13th with Pat Harvey alongside him in 14th. And Scotty Johnson and Colton Lane in 15th and 16th. Mike Knight and Patrick Cowgill we saw get turned around. They're starting in 17th and 18th with Adam Zemke and Chad Brown rounding out the top 20.
21st goes to Abner Acosta. So our two protagonists in last season's championship are far down the order. Mark Kalin, 22nd, with Doug Evans in 23rd. Jose Medina starts 24th. Elliott White starts 25th. And you got Sumner, Marinero, and Barron Hilton, the last of the fields. And we take off on our pace lap. A full 28 cars trying to race for 110 laps around only a half mile. They'll get 2 pace laps once again. Now, is it just me? It looks like it may not have reset between the warm-up and the feature, if I'm looking at it right.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it's kind of carried over from the warm-up, which is probably not what some of these drivers wanted to see, but obviously they only took 4 minutes to kind of really rough it up in the warm-up, so it's not like they were going to get a huge advantage by getting that somewhat fresh track.
Another thing to keep in mind is that the race is not scheduled to have green flag stops here today, so don't expect drivers to come in to have to try and top off on fuel or for tires and whatnot. The intent is to, if possible, go from beginning to end under green. Now, the chances of that we can't vouch for, but you never know. These are some good drivers, and they may surprise us. But the 22 of Connor Hall, who has been best so far today, has an open racetrack in front of him and a green flag waving. We go racing for round 2 in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. A little bump from behind as the 77 finds a nudge from the number 9. He's being challenged on the underside by the 501 of Dinkle. That's not done yet. They continue side by side into 3 and 4.
Yeah, and everybody already looking a lot calmer than they have. Well, I say that, and as we get 4 wide coming off of turn 4.
Commentator's curse never ceases to fail. Oh, big hit between the 501 and the 77, and Josh Daniels falls down the order, plummets as he's having trouble getting off the wall, and we've got a car spinning in front of him, and there's the caution. That was...
Like Matthew
Witt?
Long getting turned around.
Yeah, Witt's in the 28, I think, the one that brought that out. He was trying to get underneath Daniels, and Brandon Walter, I think, is the one that gets him. Yeah. And the 66 takes a huge chunk out of that car. That's Taylor Stout.
Yeah, you can see for him that the incident isn't really apparent until unfortunately he's already in it, and looks like he's lost the front clip as well, so massive amount of damage for him only a few laps into the race.
You know, that's a good point that we haven't brought up yet. Is another thing you don't really, I think, experience quite as much on the pavement side is being able to really look around you with the way the cars slide here. How crucial do you think it is, or how effective is it to have different setups such as one monitor versus 3 versus a Rift or a VR set?
I would say it's probably quite equal between VR and a triple screen setup, but definitely the single monitor guys are at a disadvantage here because you don't so much just drive the track out of the center screen, I'm going to call it, but you do kind of have to look a lot more in the right side screen than you're used to, and it is definitely helpful to have that because you don't really get a lot of help from the spotter. The spotter doesn't kind of really pick up exactly where the other car is to your outside and whatnot. Obviously with with you being at such a high angle, it's kind of hard for that to predict. So you're a lot more blind on dirt than you are on pavement, that's for sure.
So where did that put Josh Daniels? Oh my goodness, Daniels is actually in the pits getting repairs. So is Stout, and naturally, as you'd expect with the big hit that Witt took, he is also on pit lane. Well, that puts them already a couple laps down, and that will be tough to get back, even though we do have a lot of laps. Josh Daniels.
A lot of repairs for Daniels there. He did get his wall pretty heavy, but I kind of thought that he was okay, you know. I think he thought he was just kind of stuck in it, and then he'd be okay after that. But I'm guessing he felt like there was a lot more to be done.
Green flag out once again, this time coming from third. Richard Regan Jr. taking great advantage and absolutely just snookering the 501 of Trent Dinkle, who falls all the way to fourth from second. James O'Brien as well going to snatch a spot.
Yeah, but O'Brien's not going to hold on for it for long because Trent Dinkle just drove clean around the outside of him right there.
Well, there's that experience that we've seen from the 501 already a lot today, shining through, knowing how to wheel this track. The positions changing frantically on our timing and scoring screens at this point, since we don't have much in the way of single file racing. Drivers still trying to find where they want to put themselves.
Yeah, you see Bissell Jr. there struggling to run the bottom, is just not able to get off the corner as well as the guys above him and trying to find a gap in the line. You see that Brennan Walter in front of him having a huge moment.
Walter's going to stay low because of that, but he drifts way up to the top. Behind him, Matthew Long still fighting with Robert Bissell Jr. Neither of them managed to get by him. We got another caution, and I think Hilton involved. Ooh, a lot of cars involved from what I'm seeing. Looks like Hilton and Zemke, the 57, are the first two.
Yeah, you see Cowgill there piling into the side of Zemke on the top side.
And pretty much all 5 cars behind them just could not avoid it. Medina, I see Kalen as well as Cowgill kind of just finding the track scattered with vehicles and no place to go.
Yeah, you see Zemke gets turned around there and then it's just broadside in front of Cowgill, unfortunately for him. And Bristol is difficult at the best of times when it comes to trying to spot wrecks in front of you, just because of kind of the banking is so aggressive on the racetrack and the window banner extends down so low that it's actually really, really difficult to kind of see through the corner, so to speak. Couple that with dirt, where it's even harder to get the car slowed up, and you've just got such little time to react.
And Patrick Cowgill, unfortunately, with a blown engine, probably going to have to come down onto pit road to get some repairs. Now, I did hear some interesting chatter between the drivers and the live stewards. They are apparently going to be looking at people who, quote-unquote, wall ride, as we call it here on iRacing, after the race. So we might see, based on what we saw, especially in the heats, a number of penalties when this is done.
Yeah, obviously we're seeing a lot of drivers get into the fence, but I don't think anybody's really got into the fence and gained an advantage from it. I think the only time I saw anybody who got really, really close and might have got the fence just a tiny bit was when Dinkle passed James O'Brien on the outside. But for the most part, it's drivers getting into the fence and getting stuck in it and losing a lot of time rather than making any gains.
Which, of course, will be the critical factor in whether or not they deem it an unfair move from the driver. I think we're going to should be lining up too wide this time. We're only 13 laps in, which makes me wonder what we're going to see in terms of the length of this race. Are we actually going to be able to get to the end of these 110 laps or not?
I think it's going to be difficult, that's for sure. Obviously, we've had 2 cautions already in 14 laps, so if we carry on at this rate, then I think the answer to that question is definitely no. Hopefully that we don't, though, and the laps will tick off pretty fast.
I'm looking at it now, and we are still quite early, I will admit. We're only 37 minutes, well, not 37 minutes, and we've got 37 minutes left. We're essentially 7 minutes in currently. So the drivers still have some to play with, and if it starts to go green from here, that will certainly change our predictions. And there's, I think we're getting restarted on lap 16. Yeah, it looks like lap 16 as they now all start to become double file once again. We've lost Taylor Stout, who's still taking repairs, Josh Daniels, and Michael Witt. Cowgill's gotten back out. So he is, that's actually impressive. The engine was smoking, and they got it repaired in about 45 seconds, I'm seeing. Maybe that was just a broken brake line or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting one there, because as you say, I thought his day was done, but he's back out there, only one down. Good for him.
Green flag is out. Another good start from Richard Regan Jr. He's got a handle on these restarts on dirt. In fact, he's looking for the lead as he tries to go low underneath the 22, but that shallow exit is not going to be fast enough, and Connor Hall will take it back.
Yeah, see, that's the difficulty with kind of coming off the corner low. You're in the slick, whereas the guy on the top side is kind of in the fresh, or at least what remains of the fresh, and he's able to get such a better drive off the corner.
Acosta not doing too shabby after the woes we saw from him earlier. Up to third place. Battle for fourth behind them is quite close. That's between Dinkle and the 28 of Long.
And up at the front, Regan Jr. still challenging Connor Hall. Actually gave the bumper to him down the backstretch.
Oh, but he was in the wall hard that time. As the 46 definitely looked like he smacked the concrete. We got another caution. This is Mike Knight, I see, offline.
Yeah, but like it was Matthew Long getting turned around.
Yeah, I think you're right. That looks like it starts with the 28. I think the 501's going to help it, and then O'Brien will finish the job. 3 wide for a moment there, coming on to the front stretch and then down into turn 1. Yeah, he's just a little slow, unfortunately, and Long, because of that lack of speed, got caught up by everybody behind, and it's so hard to change trajectory here on dirt, Christian.
Yeah, definitely difficult to kind of get woed up and everything, and like Trent Dinkle just gave him a little tap, and he was already kind of on the limit of grip, and it was enough to send him around.
Third caution already in this race, and they are giving out lucky dogs, we should mention. This is Mark Kalin and the 62, so he'll get back onto the lead lap, bringing us to 22 cars still running along with the leaders. From there on down, Patrick Galgo, who are still kind of mystified as to how he's back into the race so quickly, as the only car lap down that is still running. Maybe no, I take that back. Stout and Daniels have managed to return. Unfortunately, they are each 16 laps down.
Yeah, obviously way behind for Stout and Daniels. Their race is pretty much done. Even at the current rate of cautions, they're never getting back to the lead lap. But for Patrick Cowgill, he's probably happy to see another yellow at this point.
Yeah, if he gets another one before another car goes a lap down, then that makes him eligible, and he should be able to get back running with the top group. Get a few more laps here as we pace around. Let's hope we get a few more green flag laps next time. But Connor Hall doesn't seem to mind too much, as he's had good restarts, but now he's starting to get some challenge. Richard Regan Jr., I don't know if he was sandbagging or what, because he's suddenly just a major player.
Yeah, he's been getting better and better, actually, and I've been kind of keeping an eye on him because obviously he started 7th. I won't say that he didn't have a great heat, but obviously it wasn't. He wasn't out there fighting for the win in his heat, that's for sure. So to suddenly now be looking like a legitimate contender for the feature is pretty impressive. It looks like he's still definitely on a upward trajectory in terms of improvement, I would say.
And Acosta recovering as well, up towards the front, with Dinkle in there starting from 4th place. So definitely 4 big names. Dinkle, of course, playing a bit of a hot shoe over here on the dirt side. Regan being something of a surprise. Acosta, we kind of expected the road racer to handle it well. And then Connor Hall, of course, just continuing his form that we witnessed in Atlanta. The pace truck has entered the pit lane, and that means that the green flag is out for Connor Hall. Does Regan try to go underneath him? Yes, he does. Can he actually pull off the slide job, though? He's going to drift up, and actually, but he gets tipped into the wall. The 22 can't get around him in time. Both are able to keep going.
Yeah, and that's a massive speed differential right there. But it looks like Regan Jr. is not willing to give that up yet. He's still trying to get to the left rear of Connor Hall.
Getting a little rough up there. Now, the 22 manages to keep the lead, but Regan way down low now puts Abner Acosta on his posterior. The 5 gets a whiff of his exhaust, but he falls back through 3 and 4. Can't keep up the pace with the incredible turn of speed from that 46, who tips the leader, but it spins himself around. The caution comes out. Nobody else gets involved. Incredibly, most amazingly, is Pellerin, who did a magnificent job, an almost graceful job not running into him.
Yeah, Regan Jr. was kind of spinning around for a while right there until he was able to get it gathered up, and everybody doing a great job to avoid him. You see Pellerin just missing him right there.
Great heads up by the 818. Pellerin up onto the 4th spot after that. So that is actually working out quite well for our highest rated dirt driver here in the session. Took a while, and he's finally showing what he's made of. Wonder if he could be another sleeper potentially for a victory. But we've already had some major players run into serious trouble. We of course know about Josh Daniels finding himself multiple laps down now, but then of course we just witnessed one of the drivers we thought could be a real dark horse in Richard Regan Jr. also now in the mid-pack 13th because of that spin. You talked about how the extremes of dirt racing seem to amplify everything. It looks like mistakes here just kind of are extremely costly.
Yeah, they are, and especially so if it's in kind of close combat with other cars, because it's just kind of the nature of dirt racing is that there's going to be some contact, especially in kind of full body cars, not sprints. So it's to be expected, but it's also harder, I would say, to recover one of these cars than it might be, say, a late model. Once it's kind of going around, it's pretty much done for at that point. It's definitely going to go around, and that's kind of what we've been seeing so far. But definitely a couple of guys in the field who are, I don't want to say outperforming expectations, but Abner Acosta is up to 2nd after starting 21st. And I'm not really sure how he's done it. It looks like he's just kind of avoided all the incidents ahead of him. And he's managed to climb right to the front of the field in a pretty short amount of green flag laps, actually.
I want to say that Abner, I'm pretty certain that when we've talked to him on the Road Series that he has mentioned doing endurance racing before. I feel like that knowledge of just trying to avoid all the mistakes and problems that others fall victim to is one of those skills you pick up in those long enduros. I wonder if that's translating well to this.
Yeah, I would imagine that kind of attitude of just staying out of trouble is probably going to be a good one tonight. I was actually keeping an eye on the 27 of Elliott White. He almost ended up back in the pit barrels again, so he had a close escape. I imagine he was not happy when he saw those coming up on him.
To quote a whale, oh no, not again. 31 laps under our belt. We have 28 minutes left to go. We're still getting quite a few cautions. I don't feel optimistic that we will complete this one by laps instead of by time. Again, there's still a good chance that things could pick up from here. As we are now double file once again. Can Acosta now do as good as we saw Richard Regan Jr. from that 2nd spot? Or will Dinkel manage to take that away from him? As they accelerate away under the green flag. A great start for the 5. He is going to be into 2nd. His 3rd is challenged. Trent Dinkel has James O'Brien underneath him, but James can't keep up the pace. He will have to settle back in 4th.
Yeah, and Acosta able to kind of get into second quite handily there, and Dinkel not able to get up and challenge him, but it doesn't look like he's given up on it yet.
Watching from on board the third place driver, that's definitely a couple that appeared to be riding the wall for quite a bit. As he gets to the inside of the 5, Abner Acosta can't hold on to it. 501 tries to keep from running into the side of him, does keep his nose ahead, and that is P2 for Trent Dinkel.
Yeah, right behind them, they got Pellerin's running the bottom right now, taking advantage of all these guys hitting the wall on the top side.
Pellerin still running low as Acosta tries to run up top. Will give him the momentum off the corner. And behind them, don't forget about Bisson Jr. We've got another caution in the meantime. This looks to be Brown, Medina, and Cowgill again.
That's definitely unfortunate for Cowgill. He just got his lap back as well.
This starts with Brown in the 64. There you see him. Oh, yeah, self-spin off the corner. Oh, and he just drifts right back up into the likes of Medina. And the Cowgill was just kind of along for the ride by the time the pair of them covered off the racing line at this track. Well, with us being close to halfway through this race, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with more running here at Bristol Dirt. It is round 2 for the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. Welcome back to Bristol. We're getting ready for the latest restart here in the second round of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. It is Connor Hall who has been leading since the drop of the green. The second place has seen a rotation of all kinds of characters. Right now, Trent Dinkel is in that spot with Alex Pellerin in third and Abner Acosta down in fourth. So there's your first 2 rows. I don't want to talk about anybody doing well or anybody being a dark horse or showing well, because we've said that about a few of them, and then suddenly tragedy has befallen them. So the pace truck now in, the 22 is on it. Green flag is out, and Connor Hall gets a great jump. So does Acosta there, and he is going to move himself into third quite quickly, but then he gets a shove from the bottom side. My goodness, Pellerin coming up underneath him.
Yeah, I don't think Acosta was really clear to go to the bottom right there. Pellerin was kind of already there, so Acosta was kind of muscled out.
Wow, my goodness, and this sends him quite far down. O'Brien into 4th, White into 5th, Acosta all the way down to 6th spot. This is great news for Hall and Dinkle, who stretch away nearly a second ahead of Pellerin. Look at that, 2 wide, 3 deep.
Yeah, big contact in the middle.
That was Matthew Long, and I think that was Besaw that caught into him, I want to say. No caution, though, just smacked the inside wall in a bad way.
Yeah, it looked like Besaw was just kind of a little bit out of shape coming off the corner right there, and unfortunately for Matthew Long, he was underneath him at the time and got sent down into the inside wall. Brandon Walter's been spun around coming off a 4. He's in the inside wall as well.
I think, yeah, he got a little help. He made some contact with, looks like, is that Sumner? Yeah, Sumner. And then behind him, Barron Hilton approaches. And the 47 finishes the job. We might see a couple drivers leave. I did hear one say that he might take off if we get another caution. We'll see if he's actually, if the threat is legitimate. I won't name names though, not on air.
Yeah, we have already seen a couple of drivers who, after being involved in incidents, have called their day early.
Patrick Cowgill's down pit lane again. That wasn't the one that threatened to quit, by the way, for what it's worth. Oh. Now, wait a minute. Did we get a drive-through penalty there? Because he went down through pit lane, but we have an automatic DQ limit and no drive-through. So that would have had to have been either from our stewards, which I'm not seeing, or it was given to him verbally.
I think he might have just gone down the wrong pit road. It definitely is a very odd decision because you can't serve an automatic penalty under yellow anyway.
That's
so
true.
It wouldn't have helped him to do what he did right there. I got to think that he was just looking for his pit box and ended up on the wrong pit road and didn't realize, and that's why he kind of made a pass through.
He figured it was dirt racing. That's the Joker lap, right?
Something like that.
All right. So hopefully we'll get reset, racked up, and ready to go once again. So we're now ticking over to lap 48, but we are under 20 minutes left in this event. Haven't gotten too much of the track slicked up to this point, it seems. It is getting quite a bit of rubber put down, but doesn't look nearly as drastic, at least on the straights, compared to what we saw before. I think because of the numerous cautions we've seen as they trundle off of the exit of turn 2 there from our stationary cam from Dougie Beard and work their way around under pace speed. Some of these, you talked about late models and whatnot. Some of these are looking a little bit more like modifieds right now.
Yeah, definitely got a modified class out there right now. Have to check in on who our modified class leader is. Yep, I had a feeling it might be Patrick Cowgill.
Hey, to his credit, he's back on the lead lap. He's running in 20th, so he ain't giving it up. You don't need a splitter here. It's dirt racing.
Well, I believe in real life the splitter was considered an optional part for this this event. So yeah, definitely can't run with that one.
All right, Connor Hall looking. Oh, it's a little bump to the side of the 501. Not sure what that was about. The 22 waiting to get going. Looking for the green flag. Very early start from this time. This catches out Dinkle. Dinkle is way far back. In fact, he got a shove from the 27. And now, whoa, all the way to the apron. That was Alex Pellerin, and it actually worked.
See, you can't make the apron work. I talked about it. I'm glad somebody proved that it is possible.
Well, that makes sense on the restart when you're not up to speed. I mean, that's the best time to try for that, when it's all fresh. What a classic move there from the 818, but he's not going to hold on to it long as Dinkle gets back into second, and he looks fast. He is on the way trying to catch up to the 22. In fact, he nearly gets into the back of him as he sails it into 3.
Yeah, Dinkle looks like he's got a lot of pace, but it doesn't look like he's able to consistently run that pace.
But he's right on top of Connor Hall. This is probably the biggest challenge we've seen for the 22 all race long, as he decided it's go time. Or is this a fluke? The 501 falls back a little bit as they flick it down into 1 and 2 once again. Both just flirting with the outside wall, but once again strong off the corner, and oh yeah.
Regan Jr.'s involved. It looked like it all kind of started, I believe it was Abner Acosta and Richard Regan Jr. getting together.
Looks like, yeah, you're right. The 46, yeah, he hits the 5, and then the 27 is below him. And then from there, each of them ran into 2 different cars. I believe that's O'Brien and Besaw. Yeah, here it is right here. Great angle of all that goes down.
And then everybody behind just not able to kind of avoid and still piling in late on in the wreck. And it's just Regan Jr. appears to have sustained enough damage to call the night early.
That's such a shame with how well he was doing in the first maybe dozen or so laps. So where are we in terms of retirees? We didn't have Marinero or Evans start this race. Chad Brown has retired. Regan Jr. recently retired. Shockingly, we've still got 24 runners in that case, but I see Walden down pit lane. I'm not sure how bad his damage is. Hopefully that is not terminal. He's joining the Modifieds Club.
And Patrick Cowgill in the Modifieds Club is actually doing quite well right now. He's up in P14.
Speaking of drivers moving forward, we saw the hard chargers there for a brief moment. Elliott White, talk about a sleeper. Start from 25th. He's up to 5th place. Haven't really talked about him a whole lot except for that last restart where he was certainly in the mix. There you see him on screen in the red, white, and blue. So sometimes, I guess, quiet is the way to go. It served him well up to this point. He's within the top 5, but now he's really up against some steep competition. Guys like Acosta, Pellerin, Dinkle, and Hall, who have shown immense amounts of speed.
Yeah, and actually just noticed in that shot, what's interesting is the 9 of O'Brien, championship contender, has joined the modified class as well, so...
Yeah, he was the one that hit into the side of, it was either Regan or, I'm trying to remember the other one that was involved there. And that definitely...
Besaw Jr. I think it was Besaw Jr. that was turned up the racetrack kind of parallel with Regan Jr.
I actually just heard from Cowgill. This makes that run up to 14th even more impressive. He just reported over the radio, letting everybody know he's down on power. I guess maybe that helps. I wonder, is less wheel spin.
Well, yes, in some circumstances, yeah, but he's not even in the big block modified class. He's in the small engine modified class.
Oh, what a bizarre race we've had today. We still got 13 more minutes to go as well, so this is not over. 58 laps in, going to get restarted on lap 59, and it is still Hall and Dinkle up on the front row as the pace car pulls away. Good jump from the 22. Dinkle caught napping a little bit that time, but down to his inside. It appears that both Acosta taking a look as well as Pellerin. 3 wide for a brief moment. Pellerin comes off the worst of it. Acosta slips into 3rd. Dinkle back into 2nd.
Yeah, Acosta actually got a really good drive through the middle of the slick right there. I'm surprised he was able to pull that off, but really good job by him.
Fanning out once again. 27 likes going down way low. That's White that we were talking about earlier. using your advice, just keeping the car safe and tucked down as far to the shallow end as he can go, but way up on the high side, Acosta once again outrunning Pellerin.
Yeah, White and Pellerin are the two drivers who are kind of really making the bottom of the racetrack work, but it is difficult to really make anything happen down there. Obviously, you're going to struggle to beat someone down the straightaway. And then you've also got to consider that you're exiting the corner and you're going to want to wash up, and there's going to be a car there. So it's not the easiest place to run if you're side by side.
I think if my counting is correct, we're around 36 or 37 laps left that we can complete, so definitely not going to the full length of this race. Sparks fly as more drivers yet again find themselves out into the outside wall, slinging it down low. Now Dinkle sees what the others are doing, trying his hand at it, and seeing how that fares is up high, the number 5, continuing to ride the rim down low. Alex Pellerin actually going to come out ahead this time. Pellerin up into 3rd.
Yeah, we've had an unscheduled pit stop for the 47 of Baron Hilton. He just came off the corner way too low and went straight down pit road.
That'll happen sometimes. Thankfully, no crews to worry about down there, as the 818's not giving up, still fighting with Abner Acosta. Acosta now pulls ahead. Can he keep this up, though, as he has himself on the podium? Watch him come down the back stretch. He gains on the 501 even.
Yeah, I have to wonder if the 818 of Pellerin, if he could actually run the top, if he'd be able to run faster than Dinkle and Acosta. I'm wondering when he's going to make the decision to go up there, or if he's going to make the decision to go up there.
You think he has to worry about the 27? White behind him has been threatening, but he's also running the same line as him currently.
I think White's another driver who looks like he's pretty happy running the bottom of the racetrack, but it's almost like we've got two pairs going on here, as White's underneath Pellerin now.
And that forces him high. Can he get the pass done? The 27 gets the better shot off the corner. Pellerin has to once again ride up top for a brief moment, cuts down and diamonds off the corner, but the damage is done. White now up to P4.
Yeah, and the other thing is Hull's had a bit of an incident as well. He's been brought right back into the clutches of Dinkle and Acosta, so this is actually maybe giving Elliott White a shot at this if he can catch this lead group of 3.
Brief moment nose to tail between Hall, Dinkle, and Acosta. Now down to less than 10 minutes to go. So somewhere around 30 laps left. Boy, a bit of a bobble off the corner from the 22, and look at how much speed the 501 is able to carry in. Almost actually gives better speed to the 22 as he shoots off the corner. And now a challenge for 3rd as White and Acosta are side by side, but Acosta has to try and stay out of the 501. Both of them lose speed, lose grip, and there goes Elliott White into 2nd.
And Pellerin taking advantage of Acosta being checked up there, but nearly getting turned into the fence himself. And now, got to see if White can get up to Connor Hall, because Hall did get out front with a decent advantage at this point, but he's not kind of free.
We got a caution. Was this Walden? No, Walden's been in there for some time. I'm trying to see if I can find... Oh, this is Brandon Walter. The 99. This happens in turn 3 with Michael Witt behind him. And I think the 99 is just going to chuck it in way too hard.
Yeah, you see him just throw it in completely 90 degrees to the racetrack and loses all his momentum and nowhere for anybody behind to go, and just spins him around and brings out the yellow.
We did get a good, decent bit of running there. Number of laps under green, so that's a good sign. But we slow down one more time, and White now up 23 spots from where he started this race. Considering there was only 28 cars, this is pretty jaw-dropping.
Well, we never did really get to see his pace in the heat after he was sent into the pit barrels, so it's probably, well, I don't want to say it's not too surprising to see him move up, but it's definitely kind of hidden his pace from us.
Now I'm looking through and I do see him on the scoreboard, but he's on the bottom with 0. And I'm not sure if that means that he actually took part in the opening round. I'm trying to recall if we saw that number 27 on the track with everybody in Atlanta. It appears no. I'm getting information that we did not. So this is his first time showing up. Man, if he manages to get a win, that's going to be a hell of a splash.
Yeah, definitely, and I think he's got the opportunity to do it here. It really comes down to whether he can get a good restart on the bottom and get in ahead of Dinkle, because Dinkle looks pretty strong on the top, and I think he might have a chance at this too, but he's got to stay out of the wall, because that's really what's costing him. He's got a lot of pace. He just gets into the wall pretty much every other lap, and that's why he falls back off at the back of Hall.
Down to 7 minutes left. So this next restart, probably if we get another caution, that might take us to a one-lap shootout at the end, as they tend to do here when cautions come on these timed races, because they do have a green-white checkered. However, the green-white checkered does not give a full 2 laps on the last restart. It's just a 1-lap sprint like we saw in the trucks if that timer runs out while we're under yellow. It's all going to be a bit tight. Still not lined up too wide, though. I guess the small consolation that we've got is that we did at least do half the laps that we were scheduled to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We might even... Well, is it optimistic to say we might get out to 100?
I think that's a little too optimistic. If they manage to go green all the way to the end, that's a big maybe. We're looking at 3 laps a minute here, so 3 times 5, as we're just about 5.5 minutes to go. That's 15 laps. Yeah, I don't think we'll make that to 100 here. We'll see if they can keep this going all the way to the checkers. As the pace truck is in. Elliott White, is he also good on restarts? Yeah, he is. Gets a pretty good jump. The 22 still ahead of him, but nobody challenges Elliott White down in the corner. In fact, Elliott down low, tries to drift up, has to give some space to Connor Hall behind him. It is Trent Dinkle dealing with a challenge from Pellerin behind him.
Yeah, and Dinkle running the bottom for, I think, the first time in the race, so kind of interesting to see that. I thought he would have just committed to the top like he does now. That's really where I was expecting to see him run and try and get to the back of Connor Hall, but Elliott White can make the bottom work, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to make it work for a pass.
Now that is the million-dollar question. As behind them, Pellerin, he might be able to get onto the podium. He's trying to deny Dinkle that opportunity. Dinkle still back up to the high side. Is a little contact behind them. Oh, big contact behind them. Cars spinning around. That includes O'Brien. Another caution. So Kalen and O'Brien, I think, the main protagonists in this one.
Well, I see it's O'Brien actually got in the back of a Costa and then came down the track and into Kalen. Unfortunately for Kalen, gets turned around. Even worse for O'Brien, though. He gets sent down the pit lane. And
Hawley was the one that was pushing both of them. Now, he may have gained those 2 spots as he got through, but he also lost a few of drivers who went by him. So he winds up in 7th. Still not too bad considering how dire it looked at the start of this feature race for him. Actually, even after the qualifying. Here's the big question. Are we going to get a restart before we run out of time, or are we going to get a 1-lap shootout here?
I'd like to hope that we get a proper restart and some more laps of running, because I this is going to sound strange to say it, but I don't think that Connor Hall is the fastest car out there. I actually think that the three behind him, Elliott White, Alex Pellerin, and Trent Dinkle, are actually quicker if they can hook the laps together. So they could mount a challenge for this. They just need to be able to hit their pace consistently, and that's really kind of where they've I don't want to say struggled, but they have ran into issues with throughout the race, where either they're checking up because of each other, or they're having their own issues, especially with the outside wall in the case of Trent Dinkle.
Looks like that was Mike Knight getting the wave around in the 68. as he'll return to, I think, 3 laps down now, so he still has a ways to go. Should be releasing Mark Kalin, who is trapped behind the pace truck, but is ahead of the leader, so he'll be waved by here in a brief moment. Fans of Patrick Cowgill, he's still in 15th, hasn't made drastic moves up the order, but 31 is still on the lead lap at least.
Yeah, I have to check if he's leading the 358 modified class. I believe he will be with the demise of James O'Brien, though. Yep, he's ahead of him.
It's still not going double file here. I thought we would get restarted. We're down to 2 minutes to go. This is actually going to be quite tight. I think they're doing 45-second laps here under caution. So as long as they double up next time, I think we'll hopefully manage to finish under green. They'll have to get a very quick caution to not.
Kalin still hasn't been waved by the pace car.
There he goes. Now the lights are off. Yeah, just hit minute 21 left to go, so 22 so far has led every lap of this race. It would probably be pretty devastating if Connor is not able to take the victory. But as we heard Christian talking about, there are some very fast dirt drivers that have been approaching behind him. Hall's been having some connection problems, though. Is he blinking on the main feed here? Because, boy, he is having some hard times here as the green flag waves once again. Elliott White, is he playing a rear guard? Is he going to try and challenge forward? He certainly is not challenging forward, but he's also keeping himself away from just a wall of cars behind him, 3 wide for third.
Yeah, it looked like he had to kind of look behind him there rather than go out and try and run down the leader.
30 seconds left. This is probably, what, 2 laps to go here? Oh, and a little bit of contact between White and Pellerin. Pellerin almost goes up the hill like the 27 does, and that sends Long. Where did Long come from? He's into second place, and Trent Dinkle gets it back now.
Yeah, Long with a good recovery after nosing into the inside wall pretty early on in the race.
Connor Hall, is this the white flag lap? It's at 0 on the timer. He's leading by a handy 1.5 seconds as those behind him. And it is the last lap as the 22 takes the win in a commanding way. Behind him, Trent Dinkle will be the one in second, Long in third. No, Pellerin I'm seeing scored in third. So he managed to get in front of them. Long still came from almost nowhere to get a 4th place, and Abner Acosta, wow, good recovery from him to 5th. Elliott White, that is disappointing after his surprise appearance up on the podium to fall all the way to 6th. That's going to take us, though, to a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. 22 is going to burn it down. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Welcome back to Bristol Motor Speedway. Round 2 in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series saw quite a few cautions today, but that didn't faze Connor Hall. He took his second win out of 2 rounds with the victory at Atlanta and now victory at Bristol on the dirt. Trent Dinkle, who we kind of were keeping an eye on because he looked to be pretty quick all day long, couldn't quite overtake the 22. He still finished on the podium, and Alex Pellerin, our highest rated dirt driver here today, was on the podium in the end. Matthew Long was 4th, with Abner Acosta claiming 5th and more valuable points. Elliott White was P6. Then you've got Brandon Walter in the 7th position. Bradley Hawley recovered from starting a little bit farther down and having a poor qualifying, finishing in 8th. Colton Lane was 9th, and Robert Besaw in 10th.
Just missing out on the top 10, a driver we really didn't talk much about today. Scotty Johnson comes home in 11th, a good gain from his starting position of 15th. Behind him, James O'Brien picked up heavy damage and drops from 4th and finishes 12th. Pat Harvey and Charles Sumner are behind him in 13th and 14th, with Patrick Cowgill, who did get back on the lead lap multiple times and comes home in 15th with his modified class car, and Adam Zemke alongside him in 16th. Mark Kalin, the last driver on the lead lap, in 17th, with Mike Knight 3 laps down in 18th. Brian Hilton behind him, 5 down in 19th, and then Joshua Daniels, 16 laps down, comes home in 20th.
21st went to Taylor Stout, and Jose Medina was 22nd, but by now we're getting into drivers that unfortunately were DNFs. Walden, Witt, Regan Jr., Brown, Evans, and Marinero. We do have our winner ready to talk to us. It's Connor Hall, and Connor, you were up towards the front for a good chunk of that race, and for some of it, you weren't even challenged by many people behind. But there were a few brief moments where it looked like some drivers were maybe causing you to look in the mirror.
Oh, I was mirror driving the whole stint. I'm not familiar with dirt racing whatsoever, so it was a really big learning curve this week for us.
I'd say it's time to start because you basically commanded this entire event, both in your heat and in the feature race, as well as the qualifying, we should say. So it seems you've performed well. What was it like going from the start of that feature to the end of that feature, though? Obviously, the track looked like it changed dramatically.
Yeah, so to be honest, beforehand, I really didn't put in the real, behind the wheel time I needed before tonight. So when I got into the practice, it was already slicked off. So I got really good at running the bottom. And then they were like, yeah, by the way, you're going to have to be wide open against a fence for the first 50 laps. And I was like, oh my gosh. But, once it slicked off and we could move back down to the bottom, I could get my little comfy zone and just focus on hitting my marks.
It's understandable. You had a few friends down there later back in the field. We heard a lot of grumblings over the radio from other drivers that didn't really seem to like this combination. But what are your thoughts? Would you like to see, if not Dirt Bristol, come back, another dirt track with the Cup cars?
So did I have fun, learning it and racing it? Yes. Is it what I really prefer? No, I really prefer the mile, the big tracks, 1.5 mile stuff. I enjoy the chess match of that per se. The dirt stuff is just a lot more wide open. Definitely a good change of pace. But I'd be a fan of maybe just adding a regular short track like South Boston or Southern National, something like that.
I would love to witness that as well. See these Cup cars try and take their way around those tiny little bull rings. Well, congratulations on 2 on the trot, and can't wait to see you at Martinsville.
Thank you, sir.
That was Connor Hall, winner here today. Up next, Christian is caught up with second place driver Trent Dinkle.
Trent, it looked like it was a pretty successful night overall, but I kind of felt like you could have maybe challenged for that win, but it just kind of got away from you a little bit. But you looked really fast on the top all night, just not quite able to get command of the race at any point.
Yeah, it was kind of difficult. I joined into the practice session right when it opened and barely got a couple laps in on the fresh track, and then, ran the rest of the practice session on a track that was completely worn out. So in the race, even in qualifying in my heat race, I was struggling to get back to being able to run the high line, and I kept getting into the wall just because I had been running the bottom line for, an hour and a half just trying to get used to that in case the track wore off. But, I mean, it was kind of hard to pass in some regards because the top line was so much faster. You had to pass him on the top line in the beginning. And, Connor just had everywhere that you needed to be. He had it pretty much sealed off for trying to get around him.
Yeah, now you say that the top line was obviously the fastest place to be, and we did see that throughout the field, that pretty much not every pass was made on the top, but the vast majority of them were made on the top, either through drivers making mistakes and then others getting around them, or just simply driving around drivers on the bottom. And can you kind of talk us through how difficult it is to run that top line? Obviously, it kind of gets wore out very, very quickly, and there's just a small sliver to run the right rear in.
Yeah, so it's super hard. I mean, you got to put that right rear right on that cushion, and the cushion's usually right about where you can get the right rear quarter panel on the wall, and you have to hold it wide open because if you don't, then you're automatically in the wall. So, and I know they were saying, try and stay off the wall just because you can apparently run it faster just by riding the wall. So I was super nervous trying to stay off the wall, and then I think just being nervous, I kept slamming into it. But it's definitely hard, and the track wears off way fast with all of us racing. So
yeah, that was something that we talked about actually throughout the night, in terms of the track was being reset obviously for qualifying and then the heats and then the main itself, but it did look like it wore off really, really quickly. And how difficult was that kind of transitioning through each time, just knowing that pretty much you were going to have, say, 5 laps at the beginning where it wasn't going to be wore out, and then you were going to immediately be back to kind of what you'd seen in practice where there was just pretty much none of the track left?
Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't. I mean, it wasn't horrible. Probably the biggest thing was when it regenerated down to 50% track state, it was putting some really big bumps in the straightaway. And where when practice, when the cars are just wearing it down, it didn't seem to be putting the bumps in. So when I was even doing my Q laps, I would hit the bumps and the car was like trying to take off of the track. And so that was probably the biggest hurdle for me, trying to get over, that part of learning the track again. Because even at the end of our race, if you were down in that hole and you moved out, there was bumps that would just move the car all over the place.
Yeah, it was definitely something we could see, as you say, in qualifying. We could see drivers kind of bouncing around a lot, and I think that probably contributed to why we had quite a number of drivers in the field not actually set a qualifying time. But obviously, overall, came home second. You got to be pretty happy with the night, right?
Oh yeah, I've been making progress with these guys. Been talking a lot with a couple of the guys. James has been kind of, I guess not really helping me out, but just kind of building my confidence. Telling me stuff that makes a guy who was running deep in the pack at the beginning of last season to being able to run up front. It's super cool to be running up with these guys.
You kind of touched on it a little bit right there, but before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to or thanks?
Well, I would definitely like to thank my parents because I know they're definitely out there watching right now, probably all excited. And then Rocket Racing Setups, because this season, they sponsored me for the year, so that's definitely been a big help. And that's probably it.
Well, thank you for coming and chatting with us, and congratulations on the second place finish, and good luck for next week.
Awesome, thank you.
Well, that's going to take us to our next driver, who is Patrick Cowgill, finished 15th on the track. But Patrick, you became a bit of a meme for us here in the booth. We had deemed a modified class out on the track that you were a part of based on the appearances of a few of the cars. For what it's worth, you finished 6th of those guys.
Yeah, I was actually listening to some of that. I thought it was pretty funny. Yeah, I got a lot of damage there at the beginning, and I couldn't pit because we couldn't catch up to the pace car, so I just kept driving around with the damage, and it paid off to stay out, I guess.
So if you're listening, I'm assuming you heard us talking about some of our confusion. Enlighten us. How in the world did you have a smoking engine and get it repaired in 45 seconds? Is the Audi LMP1 crew there in the pit lane or something?
No, it only had like 30-something seconds of required, and then there was like 6 minutes of optional, so I just did the required and got back out there.
Wow. So very, very lucky considering how bad it looked from our perspective, at least. So it did look like a bit of a rough day, especially for a lot of drivers. Unfortunately, the next round is at Martinsville, which doesn't seem too encouraging, but do you think it'll be a step up from what we experienced here today?
Yeah. I mean, these Cup cars did not feel like any other dirt car that I've ever driven on iRacing. I mean, it was wicked loose or it was wicked tight. There was no in between, it seemed like.
I have to admit, it was tough enough that the reason our track guy didn't have me in the car was, and Christian instead, is I had a tough time just trying to wheel the thing. So you're not alone. It is an extremely difficult ask. So we'll see if this one shows up again next season or any season in the future. But congratulations, at least on a top 15.
Thank you.
That was Patrick Calgill, apparently in on some of the fun that we were having there during the race. But we are going to close up shop here this evening. So a big thank you to all of our sponsors, of course, starting with SimMSA, and they are at SimMSA.net if you want to get involved in the world of sim racing. And of course, the longtime sponsor, NinjaTrader here of the PRL, and they're at NinjaTrader.com. And then finally, there is Butt Kicker products, which are at thebuttkicker.com to help set up your sim rig. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Christian, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media through the outlets listed on the bottom of the screen. If you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storeenvy.com. We keep a link in the description below. While you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. As we mentioned, next race takes us off to Martinsville, but it's 2 weeks from now. So you'll get a little break as the next one will be April 11th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.